Hi guys, Drea from Aloha Plant Life here, and today I wanted to show you some of my newest plants that I got on a recent plant shopping trip. It is that time of year where the plant stores are starting to get kind of new, more interesting collections of plants in, so I would like to go around to all of my favorite local spots and kind of see what's new to be seen. And there was a lot of stuff to be seen, and I ended up buying, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plants. So we're going to go over 6 new plants that I've gotten today that I'm adding into my collection. I'm going to talk to you about what about these plants I'm attracted to, a little bit about their care requirements, and whatever else I think about that might be pertinent for you to know as we are going through these plants. I will let you know up front though, I'm really excited about one of the plants I got. This is a genus that I have not seen in a plant store before. It is a genus that I do not have in my collection at all, and I was so happy when I saw it. It is definitely my favorite one that I got, and I'm going to feature it at the very end of this video. But we are going to start off with a slightly more common plant, although I feel like I haven't seen them as much lately as I feel like you did like a year ago or maybe 2 years ago, but that is the Philodendron Brandi, also known as the Philodendron Brandi. So this is a vining plant, and as you can see, it's got this beautiful variegation on these leaves that's kind of mottled, but it's a silver color. And right now it's a little bit gloomy here today, you guys, so I don't have, if I had more natural light coming in here, you'd be able to see how shiny that silver is better than you're gonna see with the kind of artificial light that I'm having to use today, but very, very pretty. Kind of similar, if you think about it, to the Syngonium exotica with its silver variegation, except that this leaf is smooth. The variegation isn't raised like it is on the Syngonium exotica, but still gives you kind of that same vibe. These leaves will stay a little bit smaller, well, depending on how you choose to grow it, will stay typically a little bit smaller than on that exotica, but like I said, a trailing plant, so you can let this trail. I'm planning on putting it in a hanging basket in my office. You could also train it to grow up a pole, but same care requirements as my other philodendrons that I have hanging in hanging basket. Wants to dry out a little bit, not all the way. I'd say I usually wait till it's about at least halfway dry, maybe a little bit more before I go in and water it. Fertilizing it once a month in the growing season, and always in winter. If it's still growing for me, I will fertilize it once a month in winter as well. Wants bright indirect light. This particular variety, you really want to make sure, because of that nice variegation there, that you're getting it enough light. If you don't get enough light, these leaves will start to lose their variegation. This is a fast growing plant, so it will, especially since we're in the growing season, it's going to grow really fast. You can already see there's a lot of new growth points going on here. There's one coming in over here, there's one over here. So this plant is going to grow very quickly, easy to propagate. I actually will be releasing a propagation video soon on specifically how to propagate philodendrons, and I'm going to show you several methods to do so, so be on the lookout for that. Not super fussy about humidity. I mean, most plants like a little higher humidity, but this philodendron is going to do just fine if you don't have crazy high humidity in your house, so you don't really have to worry much about that. Definitely want to check it at least once a year to see if it needs to be repotted, because like I said, it is just a very fast growing plant, but absolutely adorable. I love it. One more close look there for you at those gorgeous leaves. So this was my first find in my shopping trip. And my second find was actually a plant that I have mentioned in several videos, I think. I know I've mentioned it at least once to you guys before, and that is this beautiful, beautiful Epipremnum pinnatum Baltic blue. So I've shown you guys, and I brought it for comparison purposes, my Cebu blue. So this is my Epipremnum pinnatum Cebu blue pothos. So commonly called a pothos, scientifically Epipremnum. So we've looked at this one before, and this Cebu blue, if you can see there, that texture on those leaves is very raised. It's kind of a pale bluish green color to those leaves, but has that long, almost kind of lance-shaped leaf going on. So that's the Cebu blue. So here's the Baltic blue, because I was trying to explain to you guys that it's kind of a deeper blue-green. And if you'll notice too, when I get up in here, that these leaves are much, much smoother. There's not as much raised texture on them. They're a little bit glossier looking to me. And I just absolutely love this kind of deeper blue-green color that you get here. And these leaves will fenestrate. Same thing on the Cebu blue. Those leaves will fenestrate over time. You can already see a few fenestrations here. If you look right here, this leaf's already fenestrated, but more of that fenestration will happen the older that this plant gets. So same care requirements for this one as for that Cebu blue. Likes to dry almost all the way out. You will see the leaves start to get droopy if it is in need of water and it's not all the way dried out, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. It is a vining plant, but you can also train it to grow up a pole if you would like to. I'm gonna have this one in a hanging spot on a wall, I think in my bedroom. I haven't quite decided exactly where I'm going to put it yet, but I knew I still have some extra plant ring hangers like I have in my living room for a plant that I want to use somewhere else. And so I'm definitely going to be using it for that. I just need to decide what place I'm actually going to put it in. Higher humidity, once again, it would prefer higher humidity, but it does fine with basic humidity, honestly. Fertilize it once a month during the growing season and also once a month in the winter if it is still growing. Another really easy one to propagate just by taking cuttings, putting them in water or potting them directly into soil. Very fast grower as well, so definitely want to check with this one once a year to see if it needs to be repotted. But just a very, very beautiful other variety of the Epipremnum pinnatum, and I just absolutely am loving the color on this one. This also would be a good low light tolerant plant for you guys because unlike with the Brandi, the Philodendron Brandi, there's no variegation on these leaves and they're dark green. So the darker green a leaf is, typically the more low light tolerant it will be. And obviously if you have darker green leaves that have variegation, the only concern is, yes, it will tolerate low light, but you're probably gonna lose some of that variegation when you have it in that low light situation. But this one doesn't have variegation, so you wouldn't have to worry about that with this one. But yes, so Epipremnum pinnatum Baltic blue, love it. Let me set this one aside. So the next one I wanna show you, actually, it was kind of funny because when I had filmed my recent Is It Really Dead video, which I will link up above and down below for you if you haven't seen that video yet, I mentioned Oxalis triangularis, also known as false shamrock or just shamrock, and I was talking about how I didn't own a shamrock personally, but I grew up around my mother's my entire life. She's had it since before I was born. And so I just kind of come off of that video and thinking about that plant, and so when I was out shopping, I came across a different type of Oxalis, and I bought it. Let me grab it from over here. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is not an Oxalis triangularis. The Oxalis triangularis has only 3 parts to its leaves, whereas this one, as you can see, has 4 leaf sections there. So this is a 4-leaf type of Oxalis. This one in particular is called an Oxalis tetraphylla, and the variety is called the Iron Cross. And the reason it's called the Iron Cross is because, as you can see, we got these pretty green leaves, and then in the middle there is a spot of purple on each leaf that resembles the shape of an iron cross. So that's where it gets its name from. You can also see here it does flower. Shamrocks all flower, you guys. Let me find one that's the best to show you, maybe right there. Let me see if I can hold still enough for here. There, you see that little pink flower there? So this particular variety does get these pink flowers. The regular Oxalis, or not regular, the Oxalis triangularis, typically those all get white flowers. So this is a little bit different if you like a little bit more of that color. Another thing, you guys, to keep in mind with this plant, because if you were to buy one, I don't want you to misread certain signs on these plants. So these plants, kind of similar somewhat to, we talk about prayer plants leaves moving up and down. These leaves actually fold up and reopen up depending on the time of day. So at night, right now it's early in the morning, so you can see these leaves are all nice and open, but at night they will fold down and it makes it look almost like they're drooping. So don't see that and think that you need to water them, especially if it's at night. And same thing with the flowers. The flowers will actually close up at night and then they'll reopen in the morning. And it does this so that it can expand and absorb as much light as possible, similar to the same reason that the prayer plant's leaves moves up and down, and then closes down at the end of the day to basically, I guess, sleep, if you will. But very, very pretty plant. They can get quite leggy. As you can see, this one's kind of going crazy. And the other thing is they want a lot of light, you guys. You can actually put them in pretty much direct light. So this one right now I have it because it's acclimating to the light in my house. It's on my coffee table in my living room, but eventually I think I'm gonna move it into my bedroom closer to those south-facing windows I have in there because it should be able to tolerate that amount of light. But as you can see, this has been sitting on my coffee table for a few days. And can you see how all the stems are going this direction? That's because this side is the side that's facing the windows. That's how like crazy it's trying to stretch towards that light, which tells me I'm probably not gonna have to acclimate this one very long before I can put it into that brighter light. But because they do this, you're gonna wanna make sure that you're rotating it on a regular basis to try to keep it more upright and not lopsided looking, right? Now, as far as watering goes on this one, it does want to be kept more on the moist side, but not wet. So only let it dry a little bit of the ways out, probably only like a quarter of the pot. And of course, always look for those signs of underwatering up top and water it if it needs it before then. But definitely a moisture loving plant. It's fine with the humidity levels though in your house. I'm sure it's not like a plant that requires super high humidity at all. And as I mentioned in that Is It Really Dead video, these plants have a tendency to die back in the winter, and you can cut them back too if you needed to for any reason, like if you had a bug outbreak or something like that. You can cut them back to soil and they will come back. Now, if they do die back in the winter, you will quite often find yourself with what looks like just a pot of dirt. Don't throw it away. Back off your watering, because at that point, it doesn't need all the water in the world. You can actually let it dry out a little bit. And then when the growing season comes back around, start gradually increasing your watering and you should see it start to bounce back. It is technically a weed, you guys. Most of the Oxalis, well, not most, all the Oxalis are technically weeds. And you know how hard it is to kill weeds in your yard. So telling you right now, you may think it's died back and it's gone, but it will probably come back. So also a very fast grower, like weeds typically are. And as far as propagation goes, there's a lot of different ways to propagate these, you guys, but they are bulb-based plants. So one of the easiest things you could do is when you're repotting it, just separate out a bulb and grow it as a separate plant. But you can actually take stem cuttings of the leaves and put them in water and they will root. But I think that's a little bit harder with this plant than just doing it by division or separating out a bulb when you're repotting it. But that is the Oxalis tetraphylla Iron Cross. I'm so happy to finally have my own shamrock, and yeah, hopefully it does well in my house. This is the first one that I have had, but like I said, technically a weed. I feel like it's gonna be fine no matter what. I'm gonna set it back aside. Okay, so that's the first 3 plants, and the next 2 that I want to show you out of the 6 are miniature plants. And yes, I do buy miniature plants quite frequently. You've heard me talk in other videos about when I bought this plant, it was a 2-inch plant. When I bought this plant, it was a 3-inch plant. And why not? They're cheap. They're so much cheaper than getting like a 6-inch pot like this of something that's gonna cost you, who knows? I don't even remember how much this one cost me, if I'm being honest right now. But you know, let's say it's gonna cost you 15 bucks, 20 bucks, something like that. Whereas you could get like for $3, a little 2-inch version. And if it's a fast growing plant, that plant, you're gonna have it into a 6-inch pot within the first 2 years, definitely with most of the ones that I buy that are fast growing. So that is something to keep in mind. When I go buy those small little plants, I always make sure it's a fast growing plant if I really want it to be bigger than that quickly. Some 2-inch plants, I want them to stay 2-inch plants because the place I need them to live is small, like a windowsill, right? So the first one I want to show you, let's do this little Syngonium. And here's where I potentially go on a rant, but I'm going to try to just keep it short and simple right now. This tag says, and let me see if I can get up here so you can see. So this was $2.99 before taxes, but this tag drives me nuts when I see this at Plant Shop. Can you see what that says? It says foliage mini 2-inch. Okay, so what kind of plant is it? This drives me nuts. So I know enough to know, just looking at this plant, that this is a Syngonium podophyllum. But the question is, what is the variety? So then it becomes a guessing game. And you take pictures of the plant, you use the Google image search, and you try to figure it out. But you know what? Some Syngoniums especially are so similar looking. And if this is just a baby of a full-size variety of Syngonium, it's going to be hard to tell, because when plants are babies, lots of times their leaf shapes are a little bit different. They're not quite the same shape and size, obviously, that they would be when they're an adult. So then when you do the image search, it comes back with all kinds of crazy things that aren't even Syngoniums. Yeah, I hate when they don't label what the actual plant is, and you'll see it a lot. I'm sure you guys have all had this frustration probably before as well. Comment down below if you have. Okay, rant done. Moving on. I think this is a dwarf variety of Syngonium. So it will actually stay much smaller than regular Syngonium, but even then, you guys, dwarf varieties are still gonna get relatively big. They're not gonna vine up crazy, crazy, crazy tall, but I mean, they're gonna get pretty tall, but dwarf in the sense of how big regular Syngoniums get. I am going to go out on a limb and say this could be a mini illusion for the variety, but I'm not 100% certain. It could also not even be a dwarf variety, and I could have a like berry illusion is another possibility of what this could be, and only time will tell, but it's a very fast growing plant. So this is not going to stay in this 2-inch pot for very long, especially because hopefully you can see how full it is there already. So this is going to need to be repotted probably in the next few months, I would imagine, but I'm definitely going to wait for it to acclimate to my house as normal. Somebody really overfilled that with soil too, which is why I just dumped some out on accident. But you can see these leaves, they've got, if it'll focus, green, light green in the middle, dark green around the edges, and then that kind of pinkish vein line down the middle. Super cute. And these leaves are a little bit more narrow compared to most Syngonium. And once again, that could just be because it's a juvenile plant, but a lot of the mini dwarf varieties tend to have slightly narrower leaves as well. So like I said, only time will tell, we will see, but same care as all my other Syngoniums. It is a vining plant once again, so you could put it in a basket and let it trail, or you can just keep it trimmed to a bushy form. That's how I like to do most of mine. Syngonium, I've never mentioned this in videos before to you guys, but Syngonium, when they trail, I feel like they just look lanky and leggy more so than say like a philodendron, right? Like a philodendron, as long as you've got enough light on it, it's gonna pop out maybe like every inch, inch and a half, a new leaf. Whereas I feel like Syngoniums get way longer in between those nodes and then just look kind of funky. That's why I don't like to let them trail, but you can also train them up a pole. So if I wasn't just gonna keep them trimmed into bush form, this is a plant that I definitely would stake up with a pole, and I've seen some really pretty Syngonium white butterflies on moss poles before. So, and you know, I might do that with mine. Mine's starting to get a little bit leggy, my white butterfly. So we'll see. If I do put it on a pole, I'll film it for you and kind of explain the process. But this is my third Syngonium in my collection. I've been wanting to have another one for a while now, and I just hadn't been able to find one that honestly wasn't infested with thrips. And that's another thing to look out for, you guys, when you're plant shopping. Springtime, I feel like you go to the plant stores, you're probably gonna have less issues with bugs on plants. But when you start getting into those summer months, especially if you're somewhere like I am that's really, really hot in the summer, because that hot air and dryness in the air tends to attract a lot of pests, especially spider mites. But I remember at the end of last summer going around to big box stores, grocery stores, all the plant stores, looking to buy another Syngonium, and every single store I went to, every single one had thrips on it. They are thrip magnets, not gonna lie. But yeah, at that point I was like, well, I'm not buying one till next year then, because I'm definitely not purposefully bringing thrips into my home. So just something to keep in mind, especially with Syngonium. Really take a close look at those leaves. Make sure there's no thrips, especially if it's summertime when you're buying it and you live in a very hot environment. But yep, that little baby Syngonium is now part of my collection, and I will update you as it grows as to what variety it is if I can figure it out. Let's set her aside. So our next plant is another little 2-inch plant, and this one was a little bit more expensive. It's $3.99, and once again, these labels, you guys. Let me see if you can read this one. Bonsai starters, 2-inch. Okay, first of all, I really wouldn't call this a bonsai plant in the first place, so I'm not even sure why that is the tag. But once again, it tells me nothing about what kind of bonsai it is if it was actually a bonsai plant, because there are different types of bonsai. So once again, just kind of an annoying thing, but I knew for a fact what this was when I picked it up. This is commonly called a Hawaiian snowbush. The scientific name for this is Breynia nivosa, and actually I think nivosa is an older scientific term. I think a lot of people are calling it Breynia disticha now, but one of the two, they're synonyms for each other, if you will. But this is a tropical plant. Obviously it's called a Hawaiian snowbush, so you can guess what part of the world it's from, but it's just a really, really cute little bushy plant. Get up in here so you can see these leaves. So it gets these green leaves, and the new growth comes in very white. So as this plant develops, all the new growth up here will be very, very white. Makes it look like it's capped with snow. I think that's probably why it's got that name. And hopefully you can see those stems are this pretty red color as they come in. And then of course, as they age and get woodier, they turn to brown. But just a very, very pretty plant. And I seen these before and I hadn't picked one up. And I kept thinking about them and I'm like, I really want one. So then when I saw this one when I was shopping, I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and get it. It's only $4. Also a fast grower, not gonna get too big. And you can always keep bush plants like this trimmed back lower if you need to, but probably max height of about 3 feet on this one when it's mature. This one does prefer higher humidity though. It really wants it to be probably 50% in your house. So we'll see how it does. I am probably gonna have it by my kitchen sink. And so that area gets a little bit more humidity just from me doing dishes and things like that. So hopefully that will be a good spot for it. It does like a lot of bright light, but not direct light that can burn the leaves. And I forgot to mention on the Syngonium, you guys, Syngoniums want indirect light for sure, but they are, in my opinion, a little bit more low light tolerant. I find that my white butterfly has done really well in the north facing window in my office. So that's another thing to keep in mind with those, but you definitely don't want direct light on your Syngonium leaves either. So same thing with this one, no direct light on those leaves, same fertilization requirements once a month in the growing season. Typically, woody bushed plants like this will kind of slow down in the winter, so don't be alarmed if that happens. And if that does happen, back your watering and your fertilization off. But this plant does want to be kept evenly moist but not wet, kind of like I talked about with the Oxalis. So just make sure you're not letting it totally dry out. Once again, I feel like I skipped over a lot of care requirements over here. This guy wants to dry out a bit, but not too much. Maybe once again, similar to the philodendrons, maybe about halfway, but they will droop. You will know real fast if your Syngonium needs to be watered, so just keep an eye on it. But yeah, I'm really excited about this one, so let's see how it goes. So once again, that is the Hawaiian snowbush, super cute little baby plant. Let's set that one aside. And now on to the one that I was most excited about. When I saw this plant, I was like, what is that? I have not seen this. This obviously is an aroid. I knew right away looking from it. But it wasn't an alocasia, it wasn't a colgasia. I had no clue looking at it. I'm just staring at it off screen over here right now, so I keep looking at it. But anyways, I had no clue what it was. I went up and I looked at the tag and I was like, really? Because this is like a completely new genus for me seeing in a plant store personally. And let me just go ahead and start showing it to you. So this is a Schismatoglottis is the genus. And look at this pretty plant. I love it. It is so cute. Look at these leaves. You see these spade-shaped leaves with that mottled variegation. Once again, a little bit silverish in nature. Very similar to the Brandi philodendron that we were looking at. Absolutely love it. But this is obviously an aroid. I could tell just from a distance looking at how the growth is down here, the growth pattern of these leaves and how they're coming in and these stems. And yeah, I was just so excited to see this plant. I've been looking for a taller floor plant to put either in my office or in my dining room, and I think I'm probably gonna end up putting this one in my dining room. It does want bright indirect light. It definitely does not want direct rays on its leaves, and it is a low light tolerant plant. Part of that has to do with the darker color of the leaves, like I mentioned before. As far as the variety on this plant goes, I feel like y'all can't even see me with this plant here. But as far as the variety goes, this is a situation where I think this plant is mislabeled. It says it's a wallachii or wallichii. I'm not sure which one of those is the right pronunciation, but for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna say wallachii. The wallachii variety of this plant actually has it has leaves similar shape to this, but it doesn't really have mottling unless there is some variation of that variety that I'm unfamiliar with. It has like a line that kind of runs the same shape as the leaf, about, you know, a quarter of the way set in from the edge of the leaf. So I know that's what that plant looks like. So I'm really not really sure what the deal is with why this one is labeled that way. I actually think this might be, I'm not even gonna attempt to say it. Starts with an S, I'll put it on screen for you. I think it might be this. And I'm telling you, I feel like I need to take a Latin class sometimes, you guys, to get these names right for you. But I think it might be closer to this. Either way, I was just so excited to see it. And it is new to me seeing it in a plant store. And honestly, I did my research like I've told you guys to do when you're buying plants. And I wasn't coming across a lot of research because I think this is relatively new houseplant that's coming out that more and more people are going to start seeing in stores. So I will definitely shoot a care video for you guys on this one once I've been caring for it longer and I know exactly what it likes, because with very little information out there. I'm going to treat it like most aeroids, and that's how I'm going to care for it for now. Unless I see things, you know, not behaving as I would like, then I'll make adjustments. And once I've found that happy care spot with it, I will definitely shoot that video for you guys so that you don't have to do as much guesswork up front. But because it is an aeroid, there are a couple things I know. One, typically it's going to want higher humidity. This plant is native mostly to Borneo, I do believe, which is going to have high humidity. So if it's not liking the humidity level in my house, I'm going to put one of my humidifiers by it and see how that goes. Definitely going to be fertilizing it once a month during the growing season, and then likely will back it off in the winter, because if it's like any of my other aeroids, it's probably going to slow down in growth in the winter, and I could see some dieback even possibly. Now, as far as watering goes, it depends on the aeroids, you guys, as to how you treat them in the sense of watering. Some of them want to dry out more than others, and some of them don't really want to get dry at all. Based on my research I did and learning about where this plant grows in the wild, I have a hunch that this is going to be one of those plants that wants to be a little bit more on the wet side. Now, funny other thing, because we've been talking about weird plant tags and whatnot, let me go grab the little tag with the care requirements that was stuck in this plant, because this was hilarious to me. One second. Okay, so here we have the tag that was in there. You guys have probably seen these tags in lots of plants where it gives you your light requirements, your fertilization requirements, your water requirements, etc. Let's see how much this tag agrees with what I've been saying. So on the front here, it says medium to bright indirect light, avoid direct sunlight. Okay, I've basically said that, but I have said too that it's low light tolerant, right? But definitely we are in agreement, no direct sunlight. On the back here, it says the same thing regarding the light. Fertilization once every month during the growing season, as I just told you. This is where I have never seen this on a tag before. Usually on watering, it'll say something like high demand plant, meaning it needs watering frequently. So think your ferns, right? Or it'll say likes to dry out between waterings. Think your pothos, right? Never before have I seen something this specific on a plant tag. This says, test the top inch of soil with your fingertip. If the soil is dry to the touch, then pour half a cup of water a little at a time until the water trickles from the bottom into the plant saucer. Water 1 to 2 times per week. Half a cup of water. I have never seen anybody specify exactly how much water on a tag, and unless they just only are selling this size of this plant and not doing like 4 inches as well, or bigger or smaller, you know they're probably printing the exact same tag for every type of plant they sell, right? They're not making a different one for if it's a 4-inch. So if they're only selling in this size and they're convinced that half a cup of water is going to be enough, and I'm telling you guys right now, there's no way that half a cup of water is what it would take to water this plant and have water run through the drainage holes. This plant's going to need probably at least a full cup for that to happen. This is like really misleading, because they would be putting the same tag in a 4-inch and a 6-inch and an 8-inch. And so then you're always either giving your plant, probably it would be enough if it was a 4-inch, but other than that, you might be always giving a plant too little water. This is really bizarre. I've never seen that kind of thing before. So yeah, don't really always trust the watering thing on here unless it says just that something's high demand or medium demand or low demand. That usually is pretty accurate, but that could cause some issues. So I do know that this plant's going to want to be a little bit more on the moist side because of where it grows in its natural environment. I'm not going to let it dry all the way out. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm only going to let probably the top quarter of this dry unless I'm seeing more signs up above that it needs watering sooner. And then I'm gonna go in and hit it with the water. And this plant is the type of plant too that is gonna get droopy if it needs water. So that is how I'm gonna approach this. And like I said, if I find that it's not responding well, or I'm having to let it dry out longer, then I'm gonna do that. But I am just super excited for this plant. Look at this plant. Anybody else think this is just the cutest thing ever? Like, I'm so excited about this plant. Comment below and let me know if you would have bought this plant if you had saw it in the plant store too. I just think it's super cute. Apparently I was really attracted to silver variegation on this plant shopping trip, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys today on this little plant haul. I know it was only 6 little plants, but it's the first big plant haul I've done of this year, and so I wanted to share it with you guys. If you have not yet hit that like and/or subscribe button down below, please do so, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha!